Hello, hello. This is Dr. David Pascal from the Pascal Health Institute in lovely Cary, North Carolina. Here we are on December 2nd, 2025, and it is a cold, drizzly winter day here. But we need those days, make us appreciate those sunshiny days even more. Holidays are coming up. Well, we just passed a major holiday with Thanksgiving, but there are a lot more coming in a jam-packed, busy month of December. And I wanted to take a moment to talk to you all about how to go through the holidays and not kill yourself with food, how to minimize inflammation and flare ups and all the things that happen when we are traveling, when we're having high stress, when we are having all the amazing holiday foods that are put out in front of us. So we're going to talk about that right now. First, we're going to start with 10 of the most common inflammatory things that we eat. This doesn't apply to everyone. You know, a lot of CRPS patients have gastroparesis, their whole GI tract is flared up. There's almost nothing they can eat, two or three things. This is not really a talk for you because you already know there are only a couple things that you can eat. And that I will address a little bit later in this talk. But for the others that have CRPS or even supporting people that have CRPS, how you can get through the holidays without creating massive inflammation in your body. You're already eating a lot of foods, maybe even most foods, maybe all foods. So this talk is more addressed to you. So first, I wanted to say the number one thing that we should all be avoiding, and this is really a good rule of thumb, even if you don't have CRPS, is refined sugar, right? All the candy and pastries, just raw sugar that people eat, sugar cubes. I can remember when I was a kid, we were moving from Los Angeles to Texas, and we had to move out of our house, and I lived in a hotel for about 3 months, and I was in second grade, and I'd go down to the lobby in the morning, and there would be a coffee station set up. You know, this is like 1966, and there were boxes of little those little sugar cubes, and you know, as a second grader, that was heaven. So I just grab about 10 of those, throw them in my pocket, and as I'm walking that half a mile to school, you know, I'd just be taking one sugar cube after another. By the time I got to school, I was a total mess. My early grades back then were definitely a reflection of that. So raw refined sugar, let's put that at number one to avoid. Number two is refined carbohydrates. So we're talking about our, you know, white pasta, white crackers, um, you know, just pasta in general is going to be a problem, but the white pasta and white breads, these carbohydrates, you're going to ingest them. They're going to break down into sugars right away, and they're going to wreak havoc on your entire body with all the inflammation and with all the blood sugar level issues that those are creating. The third thing are seed oils. So on my list of seed oils, we have a non-seed, but definitely something that is in a lot of foods, and that is soybeans. That's in a ton of processed things, and it really just isn't good for us. Corn oils, canola, these things are again going to wreak havoc with our body. So to the extent that you can avoid those, that is going to help keep your overall inflammatory level down. Next thing is fried foods. You have lots and lots of choices for fried foods over the holiday season. It could be fried chicken. It could be, I mean, people do these deep fried turkeys these days, of course, egg rolls, things like that. fried foods are not your friend as delicious as they may be on first bite. Next thing, processed meats, things like bacon and sausage and these very popular meat sticks that I see more and more people eating. A lot of those are just filled with all sorts of horrible things that are creating inflammation. So that's another thing that is high on the list to avoid these processed meats. Regular red meat for a lot of people is quite inflammatory, whether it's a steak or a burger. Red meat for many people is creating quite a lot of inflammation. Next is dairy. Almost everybody loves dairy, right? You've got the 87 different types of milk, and from zero fat to low fat at 1%, 2%, 3%, all whatever percent of fat for your milk you can get. There's cheese and ice cream. All these dairy products are, again, not your friend. We should try to avoid those to the best of our ability. Number 8 are glutens. Glutens, are, some people are just gluten sensitive. So those of you out there that are, you already know what you're avoiding. But to a large extent, for most of us, gluten is inflammatory. So we want to try to avoid, foods that are made with white flour, pizzas, most snacks, anything, processed that comes in a box or a plastic bag is probably going to have gluten in it, and that is something to definitely avoid. Number 9 are artificial sweeteners. I'm going to also throw in preservatives and dyes in there. None of those things are good for us for the most part. They tend to, again, create a lot of inflammation. I'm going to get into why inflammation is bad and what that really means in a moment after number 10, which is alcohol. Even for those of us that may go through the whole year and not drink any alcohol or tend to have low alcohol consumption does go up over the holidays. It goes up for festive reasons, right? We're in a social gathering. A lot of us will tend to drink more alcohol in a social setting. Um, you walk in the door and they go, "Hey, what do you want to drink?" And so even if you weren't even thinking about having alcohol, it's foisted upon us in many of these holiday settings. And then our stresses tend to go up over the holidays for a multitude of reasons, right? Our emotional stresses. And one of the avenues to seemingly lower that stress is increase our alcohol consumption. So to the extent that you can be aware of that and limit your alcohol intake, that'll be very helpful for lowering those overall stressors on your body. So what's the deal? Why is inflammation bad? There are a couple of reasons. One is when we eat any of those things and we absorb them into our body our immune system is going to do what it should do, which is identify those things and say, we don't want these things. These foods are not good for us. These substances are not good for us. And so it's going to attack those foods. And when it does that in our bloodstream, that massive mobilization of, let's say, white blood cells, that is going to create inflammation. When these absorbed foods move around our body, they are going to damage. First, they go into the small intestine, right? Then they're broken down, but then those subproducts are absorbed into our bloodstream. And then these particles are floating around in our blood before they get absorbed into our cells, and that they will damage the arterial lining, the inside lining of our arteries, just like if you took a screwdriver and scratched the side of a wall, right? And then in order to repair that damage on the inside of the arterial wall, the liver is going to create cholesterol, and because cholesterol is this big hunk of fat that is water resistant, right? So it'll go over to the where the damage is on that arterial wall, and it'll seal over it so that the healing can go on underneath. Well, that in and of itself can become a problem because the more inflammation we have in the arterial walls, the more damage there is to the arterial walls. And then with the more damage, then the more cholesterol the liver is going to make. 80% of our cholesterol is not from our diet. Only 20% in general comes from our diet. The other 80% of our cholesterol is made from the liver. So if you've had blood tests and your doctor is saying, hey, your cholesterol is high, you need to change your diet, well, that's nice, but that's really only 20%. The 80% is this inflammation and this protection that the body is trying to do. The liver's making that cholesterol to go repair you. So the best way to handle that whole cycle is not to get the inflammation and the cellular damage. The other thing that happens is we get inflammation into our soft tissues, into our muscles, ligaments, tendons, into the joints, into our fascia, right? The fascia is that connective tissue, and then it starts to do tissue damage. Well, all of these things need to be addressed. And when the body has to address it, then it's going to take energy to go and do the repair process. And then that comes into something that I rarely touched on in the past. And next year in 2026, we will do a very in-depth talk on energetic debt. So what energetic debt is, your body only has so much energy, right? It has energy to get you through the day. It has energy to do repairing. So the more repairing that your body has to do, then the more energy that's going to take, and that means there's going to be less energy to feel good, to have a conversation, to do all the other things. It's just like if you own a house and you have a reserve fund put away in case your water heater breaks or a tree limb breaks through your roof and you need repairs. Okay, so you've got these funds, and then your water heater breaks. So you go, okay, well, that's bad, but I've got my reserve emergency fund. So then you go take some money out of that. And then you repair your water heater. And then the storm comes and a tree limb comes down and breaks a hole into your roof. And now you've got to have your roof repaired. So then you go back to your emergency funds, your monetary reserves, or in your body's case, your energy reserves, and you draw from that. Well, if you keep having problems with your house, you're going to deplete all those monetary funds. If you keep having constant inflammation and cellular damage, then you're going to continue to challenge and stress your body's energetic reserves, which is then going to mean that your body cannot use those or will have less energy to, get through the day or to go on a walk or to have a conversation. So energetic debt is a big deal, and it requires energetic conservation. And the best way to have energetic conservation is to do less damage. So that is why all this inflammation, or a major reason why the inflammation from all the foods we eat is so bad. Um, the and in our office, one of the foundational services that we do with almost every patient that comes in is we test them to see what people are sensitive to, what they're allergic to, what's creating inflammation in their body. And I designed a specific program 25 years ago that can reset your immune system, reset this inflammatory process so that you can eat foods that are inflammatory and have much less damage, so that then you can heal up and get a handle on all the damage that is being done with CRPS. Another thing that we can do during the holidays, food-wise, is to, most of us don't know what is going to create inflammation, what is going to upset us, and what isn't. And it can even take up to 72 hours for an inflammatory reaction with food to occur. And for this reason, I like, instead of sitting down for a big, 3 big meals, a big breakfast, big lunch, big dinner. I think it's much better to eat little tiny meals. Like it's not great for that social setting, but in terms of your body, it's better to just always once an hour, once every 2 hours, just take a couple bites of food. And so that you always have some food on board that helps your blood sugar levels, that helps your brain. Super important with that. Gives you energy to get through the day, but you're not bombarding your system with something that might create massive inflammation. And even let's say you're going to a holiday dinner and that dinner's at 5 o'clock, you can take a couple bites of food once an hour, once every 90 minutes, all the way up until when you walk into that house. And when you sit down and there's a plate of food, you don't have to eat all that food. You can take a couple bites and talk and socialize. There's no rule or law that says you have to eat this giant plate of food, even though someone next to you is eating food. So even in a social setting with other people with large amounts of food, you can still use this little hack of just eating a couple bites of food. The next thing is how you eat. Most people don't break down their food as well as they should, right? So we put some solid food into our mouth, we chew 3 or 4 times, and then we swallow. So now we have this big glob of food that goes down into our stomach, and then the acids are going to try to break that down. It's much more effective if you'll take a small bite of food, chew it, 10 or 20 chews. This is going to mechanically, physically tear that food that you just put into your mouth into smaller pieces. It's going to cover that food in saliva. Saliva has a bunch of enzymes, which are like little razor blades that further slice up the food into smaller and smaller particles. Then when you swallow after chewing 20 times, the food is almost liquid, it's covered in saliva. You swallow. Now the normal stomach acids in your stomach have a much better chance of taking the next step, breaking those foods down into even smaller parts, and then moving it into the small intestine, where your gut biome there, all the bacteria will break it down even further and safely and appropriately absorb the food that you initially ingested into your mouth now through the gut barrier into your bloodstream. So smaller bites, well chewed, that's going to help your entire digestive process and limit the inflammatory reaction. The other thing is water. Remember, we are 70% water, and most of us tend to not drink water. A good rule of thumb, they say, is drink 1 ounce for every 2 pounds. So, or half an ounce per pound. So if you weigh 100 pounds, you should be drinking 50 ounces of water. So I'll leave the math to you. And of course, we don't want to drink that water all at one time. Just like with the grazing of our food, it's better to always have some water source next to you. Hydro flasks are all the rage these days. Lots of people carrying their own personal water bottles around, and that's a great idea because every once in a while you can think, oh yeah, let's stay hydrated, and just a sip, just a couple sips of water. You don't need big gulps, just a couple sips, frequently, and make sure that you divide up those 50 ounces of water through your waking hours. I think that covers the main things that I wanted to say. Avoid our inflammatory foods, eat little small bites, chew it well, stay well hydrated, and pay attention to the fact of energetic debt and keeping our blood sugar levels at high enough levels so that we can have good cognitive thought and enough energy to do what we need to. So I hope you found this little talk helpful. If you have more questions, you can always reach out. If you have questions about this topic or anything, our CRPS program, you can text us, you can email us, you can call us. The links will be below this. I wish you all a wonderful holiday season. I do want to also remind you that our next cohort, although we do have about 2.5 weeks left before Christmas, we have a couple people coming in for some tune-ups before the year is over. Our next cohort of CRPS patients that we are taking begins on Monday, January 5th, 2026. So if you want to get into that group so that we can finally address your CRPS and increase your quality of life, give you your life back, just reach out to us and we will be glad to tell you what you need to do to begin. So with that, happy holidays, and I look forward to talking with you all in the future.